You're listening to the Visionary Lifestyle Podcast, the show that's dedicated to raising consciousness and empowering you to activate your highest potential. I'm your host, Magda Freedom Rod. Greetings, my Rainbow Warriors. I'm coming to you from Goa, India today. I've been healing my body and mind with the sun and the sea here, and I'll be teaching a slew of workshops over the next couple of weeks. Feeling super blessed to be on this epic magical mystery tour. Are you guys following my Instagram yet to follow my world tour? You can catch me on Instagram at visionary_lifestyle_guide. And of course at Visionary Lifestyle Podcast for show announcements. We also have a Visionary Yoga and Lifestyle Facebook group that I'd love to see you into. So look for that in the show notes, along with links to Daisy's work as well. Our guest today, Daisy Kaye. You can find the show notes on my website at visionary-lifestyle.com/podcast. So today's guest is Daisy Kaye, the one and only. Daisy is a wellness facilitator and advocate for maintaining a holiday lifestyle and dancing in the mundane world. She's a Universal Tao Instructor, Breathwork Facilitator, body worker, herbalist, and founder of Sacred Cacao 5-element dance, and is blessed to facilitate sacred space and teach and practice bodywork globally. She's the founder of Daisy's Dancing Alchemy and Live a Holiday Lifestyle, whose missions are to bring health, wealth, happiness, self-love, abundance, and playfulness into people's lives through dance and presence practices. Her methods stem from ancient Taoist and Tantric philosophies, creating harmony through integration and personal responsibility of mind, body, and spirit. Daisy creates retreats and workshops, inviting people into the possibility of how it feels to live a happy, healthy life every day. From singles and couples to mothers and daughters, she holds space for all to flourish in abundance and happiness. I was lucky enough to meet Daisy at the New Earth Festival in Bali, and we squeezed in this interview as one of her students was about to lead a cacao ceremony. We were interrupted a bunch of times during this interview, so it might sound a little choppy, but I assure you there's a lot of rich content in this brief conversation. Have you been called to participate in a cacao ceremony? If so, this may help you understand why you're interested in it and the potential this experience has for you. I really enjoyed meeting Daisy and love her uplifting energy. I did get to the sanctuary in Thailand that we talked about in this interview afterwards, but unfortunately didn't get to participate in a cacao ceremony. I'm trusting that the right one will happen in the right place at the right time. I hope you get something from this and enjoy listening to Daisy as much as I have. Check out the show notes for her website and check out the work she's doing in the world. And I'll see you guys next week. Namaste. Daisy Kaye, welcome to the show.
Meow. Meow. Pleasure to be here.
You magically popped into my field today. This is, I'm just so in the magical spirit of Bali. This is so perfect because you are the cacao queen, right?
This is so.
And I have been saying out loud for some days now that I would like to do an episode about cacao ceremony, because there are so many happening at the festivals that I'm going to, and I've attended a few myself in the past in different cities, places, and I haven't been able to participate in any at these festivals, and I'm very called, but there's always something else that's, ends up somehow being a priority. And I said, I need to bring this ceremony to my audience. I need to help people understand, because people rave about it and they talk about how transformational it is and how powerful it is. And I think maybe for some of my audience, the idea of cacao ceremony may be circling around them and they just don't know what it is. So I would love for you to help us understand, bring the cacao ceremony to us in our brief little episode here, and help my audience understand what it is, why it's so powerful, and your experience with it. You seem to be quite the queen of it. I just hit the jackpot here.
Yeah, so to demystify it a little bit, there's so many ways in which a cacao ceremony can be held, but I think the biggest message that cacao brings us is that when we can surrender to what is, when we can embrace all of the sensations and emotions, this is the pathway to love. So cacao itself is this bitter little dark bean that grows in a white, sweet, fleshy fruit. And love, we come to love because we're attracted to the lightness, to the sweetness, to the beauty of it. And then things can be bitter and challenging and difficult. And it's this... So to demystify cacao could be very long. However, I think really the essence of cacao is about coming together in community. And what I see in my ceremonies endlessly is when people arrive, they're shuffling around, and before they come inside, there's this mystery. What's going on? What's going to happen? And maybe some people know each other, but others don't. And they're out there, and then they get to enter this space where they really get to connect in heart. And what happens when we connect in circle is that we start to co-create a space where we really get to be seen and heard. And I truly believe that this is the greatest gift that we can ever offer anyone. And so at the end of a ceremony, with sharing prayers, with it being dance or breath or whatever it is that you're sharing the journey with, at the end there's this deepening of connection and community, this sense of loving, compassionate connection that I love the most. And that's what I see really as the biggest gift that cacao brings, is connection within community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was it that you said, that it's a dark bitter bean?
Oh yes. So a cacao pod is this really hard-shelled pod, and within this pod is this white, sweet, fleshy fruit. And inside that is this dark, bitter, gritty bean. And it's so much like love. We're attracted to this sweet, juicy lightness of love and connection and all. But it's only when we have the courage to bite into the challenging and the difficult aspects of life that we really gather the wisdom of love. Because if we were never to lose a beloved or be hurt, we'd never value love. So I truly believe that this is what the gift of cacao gives us, is this remembrance that yes, love is sweet and it's wonderful and it's light, but it also means showing up for each other during the challenges.
Mm-hmm. During the gritty bits, the dark gritty bit. Yeah.
The things that are hardest to chew is the biggest medicine.
Yeah, perfect. The biggest medicine. Yes, a cacao ceremony can be seen as medicine, is felt and received as medicine by people who attend, yes?
Absolutely. So I'm a herbalist. I've been working with herbs for many, many years. So in a cacao ceremony with me, I have several herbs working with all of the master glands. So we're really accessing the wisdom of all of these plant medicines together to create a very balanced and integrated space. Because quite often with love, if we're just focused on the joy and the pleasure, then where's the grounding? Where's the anchor? So in my ceremonies, it's always really important for me to put herbs in, for example, like maca and rhodiola, which are deep roots going into the earth. So it's like, yes, we can be expanded and light and love, but let's be anchored. Let's have our feet deep in the earth so we can be thrashed by life's challenges and come out victorious.
Yes, victorious. So it's a sacred ceremony, right? I mean, cacao is considered sacred. Why is cacao considered sacred?
Cacao is considered sacred because it's believed to be a gift from the gods. So there's, with the shamans in Costa Rica that I studied with, it was seen that the cacao was given to humans as a remembrance that they have everything. So Great Spirit provided the universe, everything for everybody, that there was more than enough for everybody. But because Great Spirit's wise, realized that humans were going to forget. And so it's like, what can I create that will remind humans how gifted they are, that they truly have everything they could ever need? And thus the cacao tree was born. So in the Costa Rican jungles, there's 3 times that they use the cacao. The first is for birth, and the second is for death.
Really?
And the third is for when people within the community have lost gratitude, have lost the reason and the will to really live a joyful life. So they would gather together as a community to drink cacao in remembrance and gratitude for the abundance of
Wow.
what there is. So
I was not familiar with all that.
super, super beautiful.
So they serve cacao at births and deaths? Is that part of the it's like a ritual ceremony?
Ritual ceremony as a community offering. So, yeah.
Whoa, that is total news to me.
So to give gratitude for new life and to also give gratitude for the life that has been.
Whoa, that is passing, transitioning to the next dimension, right? Yeah, that's incredible. All news to me. It's good to get a deeper understanding as someone who teaches about food and conscious eating. Cacao is an ingredient that I've worked with a lot, and I teach people how to make their own raw chocolate and how medicinal cacao is as a food, as a superfood, the highest antioxidant content, on the auric scale of all the foods, full of magnesium, which most people are deficient in. And then it has all these yummy chemicals that, like the love chemicals, that make us happy as well, right? Is that part of it? Do you think that?
Yeah, that's definitely it. It helps us relax and find joy, So it's seen that when we ingest the cacao bean, that essentially we have a hotline to God. So whatever it is that we are thinking and feeling is amplified in the minds and the awareness of God. So it's very much a tool for creation and manifestation.
And from what I've understood about it, it's twofold, right? Isn't it about manifesting and bringing in what you want, as well as releasing what's not serving you? Is that a part of cacao ceremony, or am I misunderstanding that?
It can be. It's very much about the ceremonialist and who's carrying the space and what the focus is. So when I first started holding cacao ceremonies several years ago, the theme was, what am I letting go of? What am I calling in?
Right.
And what is my dedication? Because human beings, when there's a dedication, there's a motivation to dance harder, to work as a gift. But I've noticed that, what I've realized is what we focus on, we become, we move towards. So by remaining focused on that which we are surrendering, we're keeping that energy there. So now in my ceremonies, I hold a space about the direction for which we are going. That which is ready to fall away will naturally fall away in the path of our going forward and our being present. So it's just like allowing the leaves to fall home to the earth in their own timing and not trying to shake the tree, allowing and believing in the perfection of time and giving it space to take its own space. So it's like, I'm a horse rider, so it's like wherever your eyes go, the horse knows that's where we're going. So keeping the eye on the ball,
the eyes on the prize.
Yeah, the eyes on the prize. So there's definitely people that will hold space for cutting ceremonies and surrendering ceremonies, and they definitely have a space. But for me, in my work, in my ceremonies, it's about a gratitude circle. It's about the cultivation of what we're bringing in.
Right. Okay. What you're bringing in, and even what you're releasing. I mean, that you did say, right? It is what you're releasing, what you're calling in.
So there's one thing I always share within my ceremonies, and that there's 3 parts to prayer. The first is to speak it with your heart and believe that what you are speaking is heard. The second is to become empty, to be in deep listening. Because it's only when we're in this receptive state and this emptiness that life can bring in that which we have called forth. Then the third part is to know what is said is done and to move out into the world looking for evidence. Carrying this energy of like, this has already happened. This is existing in the field. It's my job to see it. So I always remind that's very much within the space of my ceremonies, these 3 parts to prayer. Speak it with all your heart. Become empty. Deeply listen. And then move out there in the world looking for it in existence.
Beautiful, yeah. So it's like it's a co-creation ceremony with spirit, would you say? Is that accurate?
With spirit, with each other, with our own self. It's very much about co-creation.
As you said, ultimately it's about connection, right? So connection with self, connection with spirit, connection with others, co-creation, manifestation even. Would you use the word manifestation or
Absolutely,
not so much?
Manifestation. In my ceremonies, I work with 5-element dance, and I see dance as a meditational movement manifestation. So we're putting this seed of intention within our dance, which is where we become empty and manifest.
Beautiful. And so from what I'm hearing, well, also, by the way, we'll let people know that you also train people to lead cacao ceremonies. Another thing I wasn't aware of is that there's not necessarily a set structure. There's not necessarily a template, right? That people can lead them in their own way to some degree. Can you shed some light on where I'm off and on with that statement?
Okay, so for me, there's definitely a formula that works with a ceremony. For everything, whether it's a ceremony, whether it's a movie, whether it's a relationship, it all has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's understanding this container and how to hold people in a safe space is having beginnings, middles, and ends.
Okay.
So there's definitely a formula in the way that I teach the cacao ceremonies, but I always encourage my students to make it their own, to bring their own individual passion. So if they're really passionate about contact dance, I say do cacao contact dance. If you are really passionate breathwork facilitator, which I am also, then marry the cacao with the breathwork. I have one student who does water flow and gorgeous like dance, like Watsu water dance and massage. So he weaves together the cacao with this water dance. So it's very much about encouraging the individuals to bring their passion into it, because what's important is the transmission. People learn from the feeling of passion that's within the space holder. So it's like, yes, there's a formula that works, and make it your own.
Yeah, cool. I imagine that there are certain criteria, certain, for lack of a better term, boxes that need to be ticked. These certain things need to happen to qualify as a cacao ceremony, right? But I love that it can be a unique creative expression for whoever's from whoever's leading it. How does one qualify to lead a cacao ceremony? You're training people. Is there some qualifying criteria?
Yeah, the first thing I tell my students is that they must be in a space where they can hold a space for all emotions, for absolutely everything, for themselves and others. So if they can't hold space for anger, for frustration, for ecstatic joy, for orgasmic energy, then they're not ready to hold a cacao ceremony, because everything and anything will happen within that space. And to hold a safe space means you can hold anything.
Right.
So I'm kind of hard-ass with that. It's like you have enough self-mastery that you can hold your emotional bodies and can hold a space of compassionate, loving kindness for all people.
Right. Okay. So it's critical that people can hold space for anything that might come up, and anything and everything does come up during ceremony. Huh? It's an emotional journey that people go through.
It's incredibly emotional because the herbs do access that heart space, and when people feel like they're really being seen and heard, it gives permission for everything that's been shoved down and held down to come up. So it's an incredibly vulnerable space. It can be the whole realm from vulnerability to ecstatic ecstasy, and I really, really welcome all of it. And to be able to hold a space where people can be whoever they are in that moment and it be okay. So yeah, everything comes up. I've seen it all.
And people are always dressed in white, right? That's one of the things. Is that a
can be
criteria?
It's not a criteria. It's definitely not a criteria to participate. Once again, we want to hold space for everything. So do we want to isolate people because they've arrived without white clothing? If it was a very specific full moon ceremony for something specific, I may sometimes ask for that. But for me, it's really about embracing the totality and giving space for all things. So accepting you all as you are and as you turn up within that space.
Yeah. And so, because most of the time people wear white, in my observation, and yes, I understand it's not a criteria, but what is that about? What is the purpose of wearing white to a cacao ceremony?
Well, I think wearing white helps us to unravel all of the colors of life so we can be in a space of emptiness and divine presence. When I'm wearing white and when I see that as a group, that's what comes up for me, is that this is presence. This is a time to really deeply listen and come home.
Beautiful. For anyone who hasn't participated in a cacao ceremony before, what advice would you give them? What can they do to be prepared, and where can they find one if they're listening to this and going, ooh, that's something I want to participate in? Where would they find one, and what could they expect? What could they do to prepare?
Okay, so the first thing is to come with an empty belly. The more empty you are, the higher you can fly with the medicine. So it's also best to keep away from stimulants like caffeine and things like that throughout the day, because it affects the way the cacao absorbs into the body. Keeping super hydrated. Cacao is very drying and it's heating. So you want to arrive in a hydrated state and have plenty of water that you can access during the ceremony itself. Other than that, you may wish to plan. It's like, wow, this is a powerful tool. I'm about to open a hotline to God. What is it that I'm wishing to speak? So you may wish to take a moment to prepare a prayer, even if it's spoken just to yourself or whispered sweetly into the bowl of your cacao. You know, so yeah, prepare your prayer. Come with an empty belly. Keep super hydrated. Where could you find them? All around the world. Like I have students from every continent, I believe.
Wow.
So yeah, it's quite a phenomenon. The cacao, in the last 7 years that I've been holding trainings and holding this space, that the draw from so many countries and continents, and how it really is a space for us to connect as a community despite our gender, our age. In my last training, I had a girl who was 19 and a man who was 72.
Nice.
So we really have this broad spectrum of all races, all ages, males, females. And what I've also loved over the years witnessing is, when I first started, in the first year, it was pretty much all women. Every ceremony, it might have one courageous guy turn up, and now often it's half and half. And sometimes there's more men than women. And this is really showing me that men are growing, that they are becoming more and more curious about consciousness and expansion, yoga, breath, all of these things. So it feels like a gift to create a space where we're all equals. We all have a voice. We can all dance together with this universal language.
Right. Beautiful. Is there some sort of a initiation that your students have to go through to be prepared to lead?
It's definitely an embodiment process. So the first week of my training I called Dancing Alchemy, and it's really this dance of our inner alchemy. So my role is to create environments for you to discover yourself. So it's a deep initiation. We do sweat lodge and fire ceremonies and little mini vision quests. I encourage people to stay overnight on the land and really deeply listen in prayer. So each day looks at each of the elements: earth, water, fire, air and ether. So we have a theme for each day which we explore.
Just like what we're doing here at New Earth Festival.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's this elemental wisdom that does kind of dissolve through all space and time. When you look at most philosophies and religion, they all recognize these elemental aspects. So this is a very, very powerful part of the cacao ceremony, acknowledging that we have all these incredible wisdoms within us.
Okay, so you do trainings, and they're weeks long? How long?
It's a 2-week training.
Okay, and you're still offering them?
Yes, still offer them. I do them mostly at the Sanctuary, Thailand. And so they happen in late January and October each year.
Okay.
And it's a deep dive. The first week is open for anyone who just wants embodiment practices. And then you have to do the first week to do the second week, which is the totality of the cacao ceremony.
Okay.
Most of the people that do my trainings all come back and repeat them, because it's such a deeply transformational personal journey that every round I always have people returning to deep dive again, because we build such an incredible community, and it's such a beautiful space to go, who am I, how am I, how can I deeply love myself more? How can I learn to listen more? So it's very much about developing our sensory awareness. So when the sensory awareness is great, then we really can hold the space, because we can know exactly what's happening with each individual person within that space when the senses are switched on.
Nice.
Yes.
And do you also lead ceremony there? For those who are listening who are not necessarily interested in being trained and becoming leaders, can people come and experience
every
ceremony
Friday
there?
night?
Every Friday night.
So as long as I'm there every Friday night, and I have many students, so when I'm not in the Tri Bay area in Koh Phangan, then I usually have students stepping up and holding the space. And so it's an extraordinary gift to give yourself, is to come, bring your prayers, come and dance and speak, be heard, be seen, and celebrate.
Well, how perfect is this? Because Thailand's my next stop, so guess where I'm going to go?
Woo-hoo, sanctuary.
Yeah, I'm going to go get myself into one of those cacao ceremonies. Thank you so much for your time and for demystifying the cacao ceremony experience for us.
My honor, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here, Dani.
Thank you, Daisy.
Wonderful.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks so much for answering the call to be here today. I'm so glad you're part of our tribe of activated rainbow warriors. If you found the show in any way empowering or inspiring, I would be so grateful if you would share the show on social media or with friends and family that you think would benefit from these conversations. And also, rate and review the show in iTunes. This is really the very best way to help support the show and help us get noticed by others who are looking for the sort of content that we're sharing. Now notice there are no outside ads playing here. That's because the show is supported by you, the listener. You can become a patron of the show with a small monthly donation by checking out the perks on our Patreon page at patreon.com/visionary lifestyle and signing up there. There's also a one-time donation button on the podcast page of the website if that suits you better. And just so you know, your donations help to cover the necessary out-of-pocket monthly expenses to produce the show, and will also help us grow so we can inspire and educate even more people. And hey tribe, I'd love to hear from you. Visit me at visionary-lifestyle.com and please tell me your comments and questions. I really look forward to connecting with you. I love you. Namaste.